Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today to look at a human factors perspective of the situation at the Grandville plant. This presentation I've entitled Returning Grandville to Profitability. The purpose of this briefing is in response to the conversation Seymour and I had a few weeks back, wherein we discussed the possibility of moving the Grandville plant to Seoul, and I expressed a desire to take a closer look from a human factors perspective at the situation to see if there is another alternative. And so what I intend to do over the next few minutes is to use a theory in human factors as a lens to assess the dynamics at Grandville and provide recommendations for the ownership to consider to move us forward. The approach and the agenda of this discussion are pretty much one and the same, and they're as follows. I'll review where the situation is at Grandville, go through the process that I used to select a single theory to view and assess the situation, define a generic framework based on that theory, and then make that framework specific to the Grandville dynamics. And from that model of Grandville, develop recommendations, which I will present at the end of this discussion. The Grandville situation has been deteriorating over the past several years, and some key contributing factors to that include the TES takeover. The difference in corporate cultures has had an impact on employees and potentially on performance as well. We've been in a period of extended poor financial performance for the past 8 years, and even though the global economy has recovered, our performance has not. We've had discussions about moving the Grandville plant to Seoul, and that discussion has been leaked to the general employee population, and it was brought up at our most recent town hall in a very negative and uncomfortable situation. Our current plant at Grandville has outdated technology. We're also experiencing increased employee turnover. There's serious consideration of the employees forming a union. And we've also experienced increased production defects and missed quotas. Theories of human behavior and organizational behavior based on research can be useful to help frame a situation, in particular the Grandville situation. And a framework developed from the theory can be used as a lens to assess the situation. I evaluated several theories, those listed on the screen, plus some others. And considering what I know about Grandville, as well as the theories themselves, I selected Maslow's theory of human motivation, from which to develop a general framework and then apply that to the Grandville situation. Maslow's theory has three major concepts, and those are the determinants of behavior, individual goals, and actual behaviors. Determinants of behavior, there are actually multiple determinants of behavior. Motivational, the idea that people strive to be the best that they can be. Situational determinants, such as the environment, current work environment at Grandville, There's also cultural and biological determinants based on social norms and physical needs. All of those influence our individual goals, which Maslow has defined as a loose hierarchy of unsatisfied needs, starting at the base physiological needs and then going up all the way to self-actualization. An individual's goals provide motivation and influence behaviors that can be uh, reactive or proactive, preparatory, consumatory to situations. They can also be in sort of a knee-jerk emergency reaction based upon threats to their status or unsatisfied needs or their satisfied needs for that matter. And these behaviors in in turn end up changing the environment and the other determinants of behavior. And so we have a cyclical model that continues on throughout a person's life, professional and personal life as well. Now, applying this to the dynamics at Grandville, um, the determinants at excuse me, at Grandville are negative in nature at this point. We have troubling and uncertain work environment, uh, hi highlighted by the recent TES takeover, the cultural differences there that I mentioned, our poor financial performance, and the leak of the proposal to move to Seoul at the town hall has generated uh, significant negative feedback from the employees. All this threatens as we move to the right and down in our cycle, threatens the employee individual status and goals. They have reached a certain level working at GVE, and the threat of taking that away has triggered largely defensive reactive behaviors. We've seen increased turnover, unionization, and a distracted workforce that has contributed to missed quotas and poor production quality. These behaviors have further deteriorated the situation at Grandville. And so we're basically in a downward spiral, and we need to find a way to reverse that trend. And thinking through the alternatives to moving to Seoul, which has its own risks, I'm sure we're all aware of completely uh, shifting to a new environment and starting up a new production facility with new employees and all has its own risks. And so what I've looked at is ways that we can revitalize the Grandville plant and return it to profitability in a way that makes sense and continues our corporate culture that's been developed over 90 plus years at GVE of being a corporate citizen within Grandville. I think there are three actionable recommendations that I want the owners to consider. The first one is that we need to address our employees with a renewed commitment to openness and trust. Our leak of the soul analysis has greatly eroded any trust that employees have in management, and there's a sense of opaqueness about our communications that we need to clear up, and we need to re-engage our employees and treat them as part of the solution. That leads me to the second recommendation, which is to solicit input from employees for ideas to improve production quality and quantity. As managers, I'm sure we have our own ideas and we should certainly pursue those. But oftentimes employees will have the best ideas as they are closest to the product. And we could help steer the conversation and in fact it could be a collaborative effort of the employees and managers developing a strategy uh, and way forward that can be agreeable and workable for both employees and managers. And that strategy could be put together rather quickly. It would have to be to turn their situation around. And finally, the final recommendation is, let's support our employees with the best technology available. And we have let the plant technology degrade over time, and we have not kept it up to date. We should upgrade our plant to the latest technology to improve our production efficiency and quality, and also keep in mind the potential opportunity that our R&D team is working on and to break through that. If that comes to fruition, we will want to support that through our production plant. And so we should position ourselves to be ready for that should it happen. So in summary and conclusion, we are in a downward spiral. I think that's obvious to everyone in this room, but it can be reversed, and it can be reversed with our current corporate structure and employees. The only way to do that effectively is to make our employees part of the solution, and we must act now in an open and transparent manner to move this forward. Thank you for your time and consideration.